Hey, welcome back. If you are returning, you know I missed you. And if you're new, I'm LuminousRah, and we discuss any and everything that's going to help us develop on this lovely path. Before we get into this discussion, I'm going to go ahead and light some incense, clear the energies in the air, and get right into the discussion. All right, now that we got everything clear, how have you all been? I know today that I'm posting this, it's Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all the beautiful women out there. If you haven't already, go ahead and check out my video, More Than Just a Baby Mama, okay? Hopefully you'll get some insight in that video to help you enjoy this day even more, okay? So shout out to all of the mothers doing their thing, raising their beautiful children. Let's go ahead and dive in, all right? We are still fresh in May, and I want to say last month has been a little bit rough, to say the least. I want to say in some aspects of my life, it felt like everything was okay, and then other aspects was just falling apart. And the main aspect was relationships. My fiance and I have been going at it. The arguments have been next freaking level. Under that, there's been a layer of self-discovery and realization, and they only came up because of him. And I'm in my own little internal world thinking that I'm having these epiphanies alone and not really tying them to us and our relationship. But I realized that sharing some of these aspects with him about the realizations that I've had for myself, for instance, my identity, I'm African American first. So let's just say that, okay? Because that has been the main epiphany for me. And next, I would say I'm Nigerian, Jamaican, and Brazilian as well. So the ethnicity in my blood is kind of extensive in different cultures. And these cultures largely have been known to possibly not get along with each other, particularly the Jamaican, the Nigerian, and also sometimes the African American part. There has been a lot of discourse between the cultures, and even growing up, it's been really challenging to deal with and handle. You know, there's a lot of different things that takes place, and because my mom is first an African American woman raised by an African American woman, that is something that I've identified with beforehand. But I will say that I've also had the privilege of having a mother that didn't necessarily raise me with internalized trauma. There were a lot of things within the African American community that I was completely oblivious of and unaware of. As I developed and matured, put in situations where I'm dealing with different type of Black people, I started to realize there's many genres in the whole diaspora, which helped open my eyes to understanding us and our background and our culture. Now, there's also another strong influence in my life, and that is the Nigerian aspect. There's so much culture and understanding that I needed to learn, and my mom was the one that taught me that information. She was the one that was heavily involved in the culture and made sure that I didn't stray too far away from that culture. And this whole time, I have been tasked with trying to find balance for it all. I lived in Jamaica, but I wasn't raised under a lot of things that people are raised under when it comes to being Jamaican or Nigerian. And that's why I say I feel more guided towards being African American than anything else. But before, I definitely was always repping at least American and Nigerian, and not really so much Jamaican because I didn't want to step on anybody else's toes. I don't know too much about the culture. I just know what I experienced while I was living there. And the other thing is, when people in these different cultures see you a certain type of way, you don't always necessarily get brought in like you're one of them. You know what I mean? So you can have the blood in your system, but if you don't know certain cues, then you're not treated the same. And I think that's something that I did not realize I was experiencing. And aside from my Nigerian family, I didn't realize that I was being treated a certain type of way because they understood that I'm American. Do you know what I mean? So they saw me as American, but they also embraced me as family. They know that I love the food. I love the music. I love them. You know what I mean? There's a lot of aspects that I love about the culture, but I did not get to experience Nigerian culture the way a Nigerian would had they been raised by a Nigerian mother. For instance, Ty and I were talking about the good old days when his mom used to make him custard in the morning, and I had no idea what the hell custard was. I was like, I've heard of it before, but I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what it tastes like, and I don't know that feeling. There's certain Nigerian breakfasts that Nigerian mothers make. When they make eggs, they make it with potatoes, they make it with tomatoes. And even though when I grew up, I started to learn this cuisine, but I didn't experience that feeling growing up. Me trying to be Nigerian was because I didn't want to make my dad feel like I didn't love him or I didn't love where he came from. So I didn't want to denounce being Nigerian. And I didn't want to be too Nigerian because I didn't want to denounce my mother and being African American and all of the sacrifice she put into raising me. So there was always a battle. And even in how they dealt with me, if I gave my mom a certain look or expression like my dad, it was, stop making that face, you look like your dad. And the reminder that I'm not just American, that I'm also African as well. And when I'm with my dad, when I have the mindset of an American and thinking in certain type of ways that a Nigerian wouldn't automatically think of, it's stop acting like you're an American. You need to act like you're Nigerian. So it's always been this push and pull here and there, even though they embrace certain parts of each culture, both of them, they both love certain parts of each culture, right? But there are certain aspects that kind of rub them the wrong way when it comes to viewing me. And I think that the energies that I've been feeling lately about just being African American and my people, the struggles, what I know we need to do in order to succeed and evolve, so many things, you know what I mean? I just have my own personal feelings, and I feel like being African American hits home and it hits my heart a little bit differently than being anything else. It's never been a flex to be all of these different cultures, because to me, there's always been either a backhanded comment or a correction. You need to behave this type of way, or you need to behave that type of way and show up this type of way in community. And it's always been really confusing, and I felt pushed and pulled in so many different directions. So I was like, you know what? I'm everything. But when you take tests or questionnaires and they ask you what your race is, it's never something that I can identify with. I just had to become my own person, which also mixes into being Aquarius. I've always been an outcast, and I always felt like an outcast. And for a very long time, I felt like it just wasn't fair. I felt like there should be a place where I can just be me wholeheartedly. But then again, I just had to realize that no one else can really identify with how I feel in a lot of different ways, because there's so many different type of African Americans. There's so many different type of Nigerians. And I ended up getting more comfortable with being alone and just being my own person and stepping to my own beat. There was a lot of things that I didn't understand about knowledge of African Americans, especially when it got into hoodoo or voodoo. I remember someone mentioned not eating my spaghetti one time because they didn't know what I did to it. And I was completely lost. I was like, what the heck are you talking about? When they continue to insinuate, and this is a woman, by the way, you guys, when they continued to insinuate what they were insinuating, and I picked up on what they said, I was completely disgusted, because I was like, who does that? I've never met anybody that does that. And of course, I've been around my mom's family. I've never heard of that before, because those are the type of things that my mom shielded me from. Not really understanding who I am, growing up around many other different cultures. I'm very affluent in a lot of Spanish culture, a lot of white culture even. Going through life and not really knowing where I fit has always been a button for me, I think I can honestly say. And after a while, I started to say, you know what, I don't really care. I'm just going to embrace who I am. I'm going to embrace where I come from, the knowledge that I know, and I'm going to find more knowledge about everything that I am and try to understand different aspects of me. And I realized that life is not really about being understood. I think a lot of us feel like we need to be understood, and we're only loved if we're understood. And while that does feel extremely good, okay, I realized that there's more to life than that. And no one is ever going to really understand me. And I just don't want to ever make myself feel that I'm not whole, or I will never be whole until I find that thing, because I've had these emotions bubbling up on how I view the African American people. And it's interesting because lately I've been drawn to certain cinema, and I just finished watching Interview with the Vampire, and I watched Sinners. And I was like, what is up with this draw and this pull to vampires. I know spirit is starting to unravel something for me in all of my downloads that I've been having internally, but also I've been very vocal about how I feel and who I am and how I see myself. I realized that a lot of that has created a lot of issues between Fatai and I, and not necessarily because I am identifying as African American, more so because of different things that are playing out naturally in our lives. There are different aspects that are happening. And when I came to the realization that his family doesn't even understand that I'm American, I'm not Nigerian, but the way he introduced me to them, they think I'm Nigerian. And what I mean by that is there are certain people from different cultures that understand your mind is not a certain type of way because you weren't raised by a Nigerian or a Dominican or a whatever. You know what I mean? When you're raised in America with the mindset of an American, you're not the other thing. I don't naturally react to a lot of different things the way Nigerians will, especially since I've taken my own walk and my own path. I understand things completely differently than the rest of you humans. Okay. It's not a flex. It just is what it is. I am able to see things a certain type of way and not be emotionally affected a certain type of way. It's just how I have developed myself over the years. Once I let go of the feeling that I need to be understood and I need to be held and I need to be in a community, I don't need to be in a community. I can create my own. And whoever wants to be a part of that community, if they operate the way I deem they should, then cool. And this might sound a little bit culty. You know, hopefully I'm not going in that path. I always check myself to make sure I don't. I just know that at the end of the day, I need to be sure that I am not here to appease other people. I'm here to walk my own path and gain my own understanding. So even in that, people don't understand that broad aspect, that it's not attached to any nationality or any ethnicity. It's just my own understanding and my own spiritual walk. I want to say that I'm more spiritual and tied to spirituality in my own right, more so than my actual ethnicity. Even that is a lot to wrap your head around. And a lot of our arguments have seemed on the surface like they've been about me denouncing my Nigerian side. And I'm not denouncing my Nigerian side. I feel like I'm just getting very clear that I'm not even being viewed as a Nigerian when it comes to my family, when it comes to people that know me that are outside of my family. The way I've been treated and the way I've been raised is not one of how your typical Nigerian family will raise their children. And I don't want to put out the thought process that they have not treated me well. They treated me very well. I got treated like a princess. And not to say that there's Nigerians that don't treat their daughters or their sisters like princesses. It just comes with a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more language, a little bit more understanding. The way my mom moves is not the way a Nigerian woman moves, but she took the time to teach me a lot about respect and how to carry yourself, so on and so forth. But that's kind of where my knowledge ends. And even when it comes to the language, I only know small words and I will not be able to speak it back. So I can only hear a little bit of Yoruba and that's it. But in these fights, instead of me taking on the natural inclination of being healthy and trying to lead with understanding, so on and so forth, everything just kind of got thrown out the window and it was me against him. I really didn't understand why that was the case. It was almost like I was looking at myself in reflection, seeing me go off about things, but also understanding that this is not how I want to handle it. This is not how I want to go about it. And to my surprise, after each argument, I felt better. I haven't even asked him, has he felt better? But in his energy, I feel like he's felt better. So even to just let go and just argue however we want to argue and not have any healthy dialogue taking place. And it's interesting because that's what we put out in the ether for other couples to try to help them navigate reacting and responding and handling situations in their relationship where they don't damage it too much. They have an understanding of how to lead in love and understanding, compassion, nurture. And that is wonderful. You need to have something like that in your relationship. And there's also times where you're not going to operate like that. You're going to show up the way you did when you were unhealed sometimes. And I feel like that's natural as well. in us operating in that manner, I realized that we were getting deeper to our core. We were getting to the nitty-gritty of exactly how we felt and what was going on. It was a lot of vulnerability there. And it was a lot of painting the picture of what's really on your mind behind these different topics and aspects and how you view me and how I view you. And it helps you navigate where to start when it comes to unraveling things and building things back up. But if I could not look past the fact that this man was getting on my nerves, he was really truly getting on my nerves. If I could not get away from that, making it about him and get back to self, then I don't even know where our relationship would end up. It would be him probably trying to fix everything in a relationship and me trying to pull away from it. But instead of doing that, I just noticed I am discovering a new aspect of myself, and I'm restructuring who I believe I am in relationship. So every time I wanted to break up, every time the thought crossed my mind and I was like, you know what, I'm done with this. I don't need this. I don't need to be bothered with somebody that's going to argue with me that just can't see or understand who I am or understand that I'm changing, ... I had to take a beat and realize, Rah, you're not trying to run away from your relationship. You're trying to run away from yourself. You're trying to run away from the uncomfortability that's being presented in this time, in this relationship. This is the very reason why you're in this relationship, because you're with a person that's going to speak their mind and they're going to show up a certain type of way to have you speak yours. They're able to bring something out of you, to unearth something out of you that you would not be able to do in your comfortability alone. A lot of times I got to remember that. We get so caught up in what healthy relationships look like, what they should feel like, what love should look like, and what love should feel like. And we make everything about the butterflies and the sweet spots and the essence. And while that is so important, you deserve that. There's also a significant amount of landscape that people often discredit because they put it in the land of dissatisfaction and they don't want to face that it's character development. That part of the relationship is character development. Now I'm realizing I'm lucky to have someone in my life to have me look at myself and say, I have calibrated myself a little bit unbalanced. And it has caused me to have expectations of people that are not legit. They're not legit, they're not healthy, and it's not clear. You know, I need to understand that I need to switch my position. In switching my position, it does not mean that I'm not worthy, or my dad is not worthy, or his family is not worthy, or no one is good enough that's Nigerian. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I am not seen as this because I'm not that. My mind is not calibrated as one that was probably raised in Nigeria by a Nigerian mother, or raised in America by a Nigerian mother, or raised in London with a Nigerian mother. There are certain aspects of your day-to-day life that you witness, and it's all culture. Just like in African American communities, there's certain aspects of life that you witness, and that is culture. And it's interesting that there are a lot of people that still think that African Americans don't have culture. We have a lot of culture, and it goes unnoticed. It's under the surface. It's a lot of nuance to who we are and how we are, and it has become nuanced because we have been forced to minimize ourselves and minimize who we are. And even being African American, that is a culture where we're trying to find a home, we're trying to find meaning. We have been trying to find who we are and where we come from. And at this point, I'm starting to believe that we even have to let that go as well. The reflection of who I am and who I'm becoming is in letting go of trying to be something that I could never be. Even if we traveled back to the lands that we originally came from, we will never be those people. We are our own people. We have developed into something else. And I think that we need to embrace that. It's almost like having a missing mother or a missing father wound. You're always trying to find that person, or maybe I should say like an orphan wound. You're always trying to figure out what your lineage is and who your families are, and go down this path and try to find reason and purpose and why these people abandoned you and why this happened to you. And I feel like that's just us. How sorrowful is that? That feels sad even to think about a whole people that experience that. Even if they do know their mother and their father, there's still this deep rooted, settled wound. And I feel like we deserve to be able to have the right to let that go and to say, okay, who are we now? Who are we going to develop into? So this whole experience about arguing with this man, this poor man, goes through so much. I go through stuff too. Like, it's not just him going through stuff. He be putting me through stuff too. Now, let me. But just honestly, in this relationship, being triggered and wondering like, man, where are all these arguments coming from all of a sudden? We've been good. At this big age of ours, we should not be arguing like this. And that's just society talking. There is never a time that you're not going to revert or you're not going to act out of character or out of body or change or even stay the same. We have to honor the process of being human. I think this is what it's actually boiling down to. It's also interesting because I even tried to understand, maybe we're just arguing because I'm Aquarius and he's a Pisces. Maybe that's why, because we're both like out of this stratosphere. So maybe that's the reason why everything is all chaotic and all over the place, which made me realize like, girl, you can know what you know about astrology, but you're also living a full life that is sprinkled and scattered with reasons of why things happen, right? But when I think about this evolution of self, who I'm becoming, I realize these are monumental shifts that I'm experiencing. And I don't have monumental shifts for no reason. That means that I'm getting set up to be put in position for a reason. And when I speak, it's going to hit people, even though I don't think that anybody can relate. I don't know if any other couples on the internet that are teaching healthy couple relationship, whatever, are going to freely talk about their relationship and say, we were just arguing 2 weeks ago. We were just arguing yesterday. Yeah, that happens. You know what I mean? Because so many people take what you say out of context that you don't even want to share what's happening in your real life. Me, on the other hand, I understand that it happens, and it's happening because there's a shift. There's some sort of shift happening. The divine uses the people around you to help you with your shift. That's why you have to always have some sort of gratitude to meeting different people, even if the experience always isn't good. It's not always going to feel good to you. We put a lot of energy into wanting to get away from pain and discomfort, and we have to remember that that is a part of the plan. That is what makes the good times feel so good. Instead of me saying this person is triggering me, I don't like how we're arguing and I don't like what we're arguing about. I feel like I'm not being understood. I feel like my emotional needs aren't being met. I need a better man. I need to replace this man with another man. You can't do that. I feel like a lot of us don't know when to break up, and we just want to make sure we're doing the best for ourselves. If you can still go on your path and do your purpose while you're in partnership, then you're on your path and you're in purpose. The second that you are pulled away from that partnership, that is when you will have the realization it's time to let go. For me, I like to keep it as clean, easy peasy as possible. The second that something is not operating right, I'm like, okay, maybe it's time to move around, because I don't want to be hard-headed. I am overacting the lessons that I've learned in my past. I'm over-predicting, overthinking, giving myself more anxiety. It's one of those things that in this relationship, every time I even allow myself to go and entertain those sort of thoughts, I don't feel like I'm able to move. Not because of my emotion, not because of my beliefs. I feel like there is something else in the ethers that's like, I mean, you got free will. If that's what you want to do, you could do it, but nothing is going to really feel right after that. It's something about Ty that makes me vulnerable and open up the way I do. And I cannot say that I've ever experienced anyone else like the last. No one else is going to be able to open me up like him. If my plan with him to overcome and self-realize is not done with this individual, there will always be a piece of me that feels like I'm not quite in place. And while you will always find your place, if you're willing, it just won't feel right for a while. Understanding that aspect, it helps me realize it's not me against him, or it's not me and him. This movie is mine. And I need to figure out what the script is saying. There's something in the script that's changing for me as the main character, and I need to figure out exactly what that is. The second that I was able to realize that these arguments felt different, it was almost like at the end of each argument, there was a breath of fresh air mixed in with a little confusion and maybe a little bit of resentment as well and anger. The more we had these arguments, the more clarity I was able to get. And the clarity wasn't in him. The clarity was within me. I was able to see who I am. And not only just that, I was able to stand in my own truth. I was able to ask myself some clarifying questions. Is that what's really happening? The things that I'm telling myself, is that what's really going on? Or is that just feeding my ego? Is that just feeding my anger? And if this thing is what's going on, why do I care when I typically don't? I typically don't care. So why am I caring about this so much all of a sudden? Is it just because I'm going through my luteal stage, or I'm about to menstruate? Or is there something bigger happening to me right now? When I sat with myself and I thought about that, it was clear and evident that I needed to sit with myself and figure out exactly what was going on. Now that the air is clear and everything is better, and I was able to put my swords down and say, okay, I need to reflect on self. This is not necessarily him. And while we are having these arguments, we can continue to have the arguments. It's fine. Once you get with a person that you know, you're not going nowhere. I'm not going nowhere. We've already decided on each other. All you have to do is make sure that you all understand that you love each other. And when I was able to realize that this is about me, it's not about him, and he's just like the facilitator of this change, it was easier to have conversations and to sit down with him. And now he's able to listen and hear my perspective and where I come from. So it's not that I need to change my partner. My partner is going to evolve with me. And that is exactly what's happening. He's going to begin to listen and have compassion and understanding. And while I am probably not his ideal partner, what he thinks or believes that he needs, and he may not be my ideal partner in what I think and believe I need. But I will say that anytime there's a given opportunity for us to step up to the plate and evolve, we do. Who's to say that we won't evolve into who we need to be with each other? And it's not one of those situations that's wishful thinking. It's something that I've observed over the years. I've been able to just observe that every time there's a shift or an issue or an inkling or an argument, we end up shifting after, and then we continue on, and then there's another shift. And at some point, it's going to become apparent what's going on if we do begin to argue or things get a little out of hand, and we'll be able to say, oh, okay, we don't really need to go down this whole debacle. We can just have conversations with each other and see what's going on, even though we're triggered. I'm triggered, you're triggered, but let's kind of try to figure out what's going on. We're still maturing. We're still young. Humans are starting to live longer and longer. And I would say, especially with millennials, we don't know where we are in terms of age. We all look like kids, the majority of us. Or we act like kids, but we have adult responsibilities. And I can say that a lot of us will look back at our parents and say, I don't feel as mature as my parents did at my big age. Even the shift in that is a lot to take in and understand, especially if you're paying attention to what's going on out in the world. There's a lot happening. And if you think about it, if there was no technology, if there was no television, if there was no government, we wouldn't even know what was happening on the other side of the world. So we are constantly being fed a lot of information. A lot of us don't even know what to do with. And it's very distracting finding how all of this stuff correlates back to ourselves. It's distracting. It's distracting us from going within. It's distracting us from understanding who we are. We're so fixated on who everybody else is in the world. So when we finally get back to self, that's when we understand self. All of this prompted me to look at the planetary systems and see exactly what was going on. What are the planetary systems at this time? What's going on? And what does that mean for me? And lo and behold, I came to some realizations that I already came to before I looked everything up, but I was able to see, oh, okay, the way I'm reading my downloads, the way that I'm reading my dreams, the way that I'm reading what's happening and unfolding in my life, I can see the influence of it in the planetary systems as well. The first transit I'm going to go over is the Aries transit, and that's about asserting myself and breaking away from old stories where I was muted, undervalued, or overly accommodating. Typically, there's probably a lot of peace in our relationship, mainly because I pick and choose my battles. And a lot of battles that I probably should be fighting, I don't fight. Because at the end of the day, I am just trying to figure things out with myself, and I'm trying to get this content out on time. I'm trying to just show up in peace because that's what I value. So there may also be some echoes of things that I'm not necessarily standing in my truth with. Everything passes you by extremely fast. You don't really realize the subtleties of when you're minimizing yourself or when you avoid certain type of conversations or conflicts because you know how your person is. And that conformality within relationship is also what keeps people stagnant, because you are getting used to the mold of your partner instead of allowing yourself to be and become who you need to be and become and live in your purpose and be truthful about who you are. A lot of us get settled in comfortability and we don't ever push the status quo. And that's on both ends, masculine and feminine. We need to stand in who we are. It's not right to mold into comfortability in a relationship for the sake of having peace. I have to continuously remind myself that everything is not going to be peaceful. And because it's my nature to be overly accommodating, I have to get back to that balance of saying, okay, that is a past lesson that we've learned our lesson from. We have to be aware and we have to stand in our truth. I've also been subconsciously peeling back emotional layers and generational layers around the space that I'm allowed to take up. I am such a laid back person. In high school, I was all over the place. I would be singing, dancing. I was the life of the party. But there were a lot of times that people didn't realize I was really chill. And that's my nature, to be extremely chill and laid back. And a lot of times I did that probably subconsciously from trauma of not taking up too much space and not being in the way and being hyper aware of everybody else and not being an issue for anybody and just being this pretty quiet, tightly wrapped, petite little thing that sits in a corner and I only show my face when I'm called. Breaking down all of that and even having a discussion of who I am and my culture and my background and who I identify as, that is also me over accommodating and being a people pleaser, because I am whoever I say I am, not who everybody else says that I am. Their opinion does not matter. Let's say it again. Their opinion does not matter. It shows up in all these other aspects, but when it comes to this version of literally who I am as a person and how I show up in the world, I'm still being over accommodating. I'm still being a people pleaser in some way or some right. That is old news. It's stale, it's sour, and it's time to go. I appreciate this time for that. Now, this aspect is leading me towards speaking bolder and louder truths. My communication has probably been like spitting blades out of my mouth. There's been a lot of tension in my communication lately because I'm going to say it how I want to say it and I'm going to speak my truth, and I don't care who has an issue with it. I've definitely been feeling this. Even when it comes to social media, I am so hyper aware of how I respond to people in different comments. And now I'm just like, you're going to get this work. You're going to get whatever energy I decide to give you. I feel like a lot of the pride of being Aquarius and knowing, I also don't want to feed my ego. So I don't want to act like I know, even though I do. And a lot of people like to scurry away into these little corners and act as though they didn't mean what they said, or they didn't mean what they did, or they were unaware, or I mistook what they said. And I'm about to have my foot on everybody's neck going forward. If you said what you said, watch what you say. Be hyper aware of how you communicate with me, because at the end of the day, if I read it and I don't like how you saying what you're saying, or I don't like where you coming from, however I respond is on you. Because now I'm realizing I've cleared so much trauma out of my system that there's a lot of instances where I'm not projecting, and I always wanted to play it safe. I did not want to be that person that didn't know, or that person that was projecting. And now I'm just like, you know what? You're projecting, and now I'm going to call you out when you're projecting. But there's also still this air of maturity where everybody is not going to get my energy, because at the end of the day, I know that's exactly what you want, and I don't give that freely. Finding that balance of who I am, knowing when to speak, knowing when not to speak, and knowing when things are a problem and the problem needs to be addressed. Okay? Shout out to Aries energy for that, baby. Moving on to the next transit. Today I'm feminist on May 5th. So that means that Right now, today, the moon is moving in the 29th degree of Leo. And if you know anything about the 29th degree, baby, then you know. This is intensifying my emotional expression around the need to be seen, chosen, and respected. So you guys can even feel this energy, I'm sure. When it comes to emotions, because I am a Saturn stellium, I'm an Aquarius sun, I'm a Capricorn stellium, I'm a Gemini rising, I'm a Virgo moon. The value of emotions is not a big thing over here. When it comes to emotions, yeah, I feel them, I understand them, I see them, but we're gonna have to move that to the side and get down to the nitty-gritty of exactly what's happening. So I love this transit for me because it's making me realize that how I feel is valid. And I need to act in how I feel. It's not just about working and laying down the structure and building the foundation for things. I also need to show up in how I feel. And how I feel is I'm going to be heard. I'm going to be seen. And when I decide to exit, that's when I exit. You don't tell me when I'm going to leave. I've been feeling kind of lonely in a way, and it's in a way that I don't really know how to explain because everything that I could possibly need is here. But because I shy away from my emotions and how I feel and my needs for intimacy, I think it's apparent I need something, even if it seems like childish in a way. It's really funny because the other day I was telling Fatai, I need a hug. I think I asked him 4 times yesterday to give me a hug, but it was specifically holding. I wanted to be held and I wanted to hold back. Even with my son, I've been hugging my son a lot too. That feeling of not giving myself what I need, man. And I don't even know that I'm doing that because I'm on the go. It's all about building the brand, building something, following purpose. Every time I turn around, it's work for me. Even when it comes to my mom was mentioning the other day that I don't answer the phone when she calls. And while that's not a big deal to me, I will say that I'm not answering because I'm so hell-bent on getting things done. I need to catch up. I need to get ahead. I need to get this done. This needs to be the plan for this future. This needs to be the plan for that future. And I have so many futures going on that I'm not even giving myself and my body what it needs. And I need a hug. So this is a time for me to create and express and be admired authentically, not in a performative type of way. So right now, I'm definitely in hyper creativity. There was also something that I read that was saying to be careful because it'll be probably heightened in drama if I don't feel emotionally fed. But I will say that I'm happy that I'm with a water sign because when I do ask, if I need to even ask, I do receive. I do get the love and affection that I need. So hopefully there's no drama. In this aspect, I realize that I'm feeling more mature. I'm closing out a lot of karmic obligation and cycles that are tied to perfectionism, people pleasing, or caretaking roles that are rooted in fear rather than love. This also has been a time where I've been feeling the areas where I typically emotionally shrink and now I'm not standing for it. Definitely overcoming the different aspects of the time and the planetary systems that are showing up. But even if we take that out of the picture, just feeling like I'm not tolerating it anymore. There's something in the ether that is allowing me to go down that path and just not caring about how it's taken. I'm no longer inclined to overly fix the situation to keep the peace. If the peace is not going to be kept, then the peace is just not going to be kept. And I feel like at this moment in my life, because I've learned all that I've learned and I've been keeping the peace and I've been going down this path of harmonizing, I'm in a good spot of balance to be able to say, I'm no longer going to keep the peace. I'm not going to go out of my way or break myself to keep the peace or minimize. If it's time to turn up, it's just time to turn up. And that does not mean that there's a lack thereof of love. It just means that this situation needs to be addressed. And I can be only as diplomatic as you are. Keep that in mind. However you show it with me, that's how I'm going to show it with you. But I also know not to take it to a petty area. With my fiance and I, we just some petty betties, okay? We just gonna be petty. Aquarius and Pisces, petty. All right. But when it comes to everybody else, there's no need for me to be petty because at the end of the day, none of that really matters. All I care about is making sure that I show up in my truth and I come first. And I feel like this is a really good space to say This is what it looks like when you put yourself first. You have to go against some of the things that caused you a lot of comfort back in the day. And you don't even know that you're being stagnant when you're being comfortable, but your peace does need to get disturbed. And I feel like from 2020 up until about 2024, it's been all about peace, tranquility. If these people disturb my peace, they gotta go. Actually, you need to go ahead and handle that, because that is a part of your internal development. That is your emotional development. That is your personal development. Sometimes conflict is necessary, and it usually is necessary when you are very comfortable in peace, when everything is peaceful and you have completely eradicated anything and everything that has disrupted your peace. Now you need to know how to operate in situations that could disrupt your peace, but know how to handle it in a way where you're like, you know what? It's not going to disrupt my peace. And just because I'm addressing it does not mean that it's disrupting my peace, but it will be addressed. Because we let people off the hook so much, nobody ever really learns anything. And sometimes the accountability is being accountable to yourself. Everything is not always going to be peaceful and copacetic. Sometimes you got to show up and show out and be strong in who you are, but not necessarily in conflict all the time. It doesn't always have to be belittlement and hitting people lower and lower, and when they go low, you go to hell. It doesn't have to get to that level, but you definitely need to speak your piece. And it's not because you're trying to get somebody else to understand. It's because you need to speak your truth. It's for you. It doesn't matter whether they get the message or not. This is for you. So go ahead and open up that throat chakra, to go ahead and open up that heart space. How do you really feel about the situation? And you need to say it because you need to hear yourself say it so that you know you're done. You're done. That's it. This is no longer going to take place. And I would appreciate it if you tread lightly. A lot of us like to avoid and bail out on the situation before addressing the situation. And a lot of times the situation definitely needs to be addressed. And the other piece for me that I feel is so interesting to even find is the fact that I'm being asked to develop an emotional trust and surrender over analytical control. And that's what I was telling you guys. If it don't make sense, it don't make dollars. If it does not add up, baby, 1 + 1 is 2. If anybody is talking about anything else, I don't want to hear about how you feel. And I even do that to myself. So to be able to say, you know what, my emotions matter. Fighting for how I feel matters. Now I can understand why other people fight for how they feel. And just because I don't agree with how people fight does not mean that it doesn't matter. And a lot of times I do throw the baby out with the bathwater. If it's rooted in soul emotions, no logic, that's just how you feel and you over here fighting me for it, I don't even want to hear what you're saying, and I'm discrediting everything that you say. I don't want to hear it. And that's not fair, because that is a reflection of how I treat myself as well. And those days are done. So now there might be a little bit more heightened experiences where I'm clashing with somebody based on how I feel, because how I feel matters. It's safe to say that this transit currently is highlighting the lesson that I am no longer responsible for everyone else's healing. Even though that's how I feel, that is what I have created this whole platform for. Lord, I would just love it if the divine can just stop pulling the rug from up underneath me all the time. You know what I mean? But that is the truth, because I need to understand that I'm responsible for my peace. And sometimes my peace doesn't always come peacefully. Sometimes we gotta roar. Sometimes we gotta show our teeth. Sometimes we gotta scratch some things up. I'm always trying to be mature and diplomatic, removing the belief system that just because I speak up and people don't take it well and they want to go back and forth does not mean that I'm trying to go low. That just means that they're trying to go low. And just because they're trying to go low, I'm not going to let them have it. I'm not about to let people continue to have these tantrums with me. And then I just say, you know what? I'm dropping my swords and I'm just going to walk away because I don't have time for this. No. You're going to hear me, and you're going to hear me very well. And when I'm done with speaking, that is when I will lay my swords down and walk away. Because at the end of the day, I can't give up on self. I can't give up on my beliefs and how I feel. And how I feel is important. And for a very long time, I've been putting how I feel to the side for others. Look at this other area of people pleasing that I'm discovering for myself. I thought that I already finished this cycle and this life lesson, but apparently I didn't, because even when it comes to how I show up in my morality, I am still putting how I feel to the side because I don't want to disrupt other people's energies and vibrations, but they already disrupt their energy and vibration by how they showed up. I'm going to speak my piece and I'm going to say it all. I'm going to clear the room. And then when I'm done, I'm done. And that's just that simple. This Pluto influence is so interesting because I already touched on this already. The way I show up with social influence is going to be completely different than how I've been showing up. How I'm relating to my audience is definitely going to be different because at this point, I'm not going to go out of my way to try to be pristine and perfect and show up as the exemplary figure that I think I should show up as. I'm going to be myself and I'm going to operate how I want to operate on my journey until I get to the point that is the example that I want to shine. When I'm there, I will be there if I get there. So at this point, wherever I am in my journey, that's how I'm going to show up in my journey. And everybody is going to be able to see that growth. And anybody that has an issue with that growth has an issue with themselves. You don't have an issue with me. The next thing that I've noticed about myself, and it's been sort of a tug of war, is the fact that there's an aspect of me that wants to remain very private. I'm extremely private on social media. No matter what you see on social media, you do not know what the hell I got going on in my life. And I like it that way. It definitely makes me feel like I have a lot of control of my safety and who I am internally. But I also feel like there's an aspect of me that's saying, no, share it, say it, do it, show up that way. Don't have any type of filter. Don't have any type of veil because you're trying to play it safe for your future. You're trying to build a certain type of way in the future. And thinking and being so careful with everything that I do is a part of the reason why I can't get a lot of stuff done. It's a part of the reason why I'm feeling so stagnant and stuffy and left behind because I'm not able to show up the way the divine wants me to show up. I need to show up exactly how I feel in that moment and be honest about that. That is what life is about. If I'm going to be a teacher, I need to be the teacher that is 100% who they say they are. We're missing a lot of that. A lot of people do a craft or they have a gift or they operate in a certain type of genre, but they are completely different from the craft that they put out. The one thing that's been boiling under the surface for me is the fact that I don't like supporting people that aren't a reflection of the product, the business, the creativity that they put out. A great example of this, especially since I'm a Chicagoan, is R. Kelly. A lot of Chicagoans still hold R. Kelly down, despite what that man has done, because his music is so great. Before Kanye started saying he was a musical genius, people were already saying R. Kelly was a musical genius. I even liked a lot of R. Kelly's music, but I can't stand behind all of the things that's been going on. And to be honest, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, a lot of people in Chicago already knew what R. Kelly was on. We already knew. So the parents that were allowing their kids to go and do whatever with R. Kelly and they weren't watching that man, were letting their kids do that alone and go be around him alone, they already knew what time it was. They knew what was taking place. They are equally as guilty. As long as I've known about R. Kelly, everybody grew up on R. Kelly pretty much, in the African American community especially. You hear the whispers, you hear the stories, you already know what's up. There's that aspect of it. The next aspect I think would be like Target. They're pulling all of these things that socially a lot of people are not agreeing with, but people love to go to Target. Before we knew all this, maybe some people knew this and they just kept it on a hush because they just could not get past how they felt about Target. But at the end of the day, whoever is running the company is not matching how we feel about the actual company. And right now, the last time I went into Target, I needed to get a plunger. And I wish there was another place that sold a plunger that was closed because I would have preferred to go somewhere else besides Target. Even when I went in there was nothing happening in there that I wanted to be a part of. The whole experience of the joy that I used to feel going to Target is no longer there. I've moved on. At this point, I hope Amazon don't do nothing because that's where I get a lot of stuff from, man. Don't even comment and tell me nothing down below until I find something else. Please. There's a lot going on where you see a person and they're a person, but we see a celebrity or we see a corporation or we see an artist and we don't think about who they are as people. I'm starting to get to the point that I don't like the fact that people are not decent people, but we love their product. I think that goes into the belief that money is the root of all evil. We think that you have to do evil things in order to get it, and that's not true. You want me to tell you the truth? I'll tell you the truth. The truth is the people that are actually meant to lead, we are not consistent. And I'm going to throw me in there as well. We're not consistent. We don't do what we need to do. And it's because we feel so deeply about our craft. We feel so deeply about our message. We feel so deeply about showing up in a way that we're supposed to show up that we don't show up. And because we don't show up, that's why it's so many people that we don't agree with how they behave taking over the markets. At the end of the day, they don't care. Their emotional body is not there to stop them or hinder them or make them feel stagnant, because no matter what, they're going to get it. A lot of these social media content creators, the ones that I love the most are the ones that don't post the most, that I get so frustrated with them because they don't post. And then I start thinking about myself and I'm like, you don't post. Who are you? Who are you to say, girl? The people that are always consistent and always showing up, I start to see things about them that I don't like. And I'm like, I wish this person would post like that person, because I would much rather spend my time, my money, my effort, my attention on that person. And that is a message to all of us, all of the intuitives, all of the people that are doing the work, all of the people that are literally decent, like doing their best to be decent. We need to show up more. Because at the end of the day, it's not the fact that the algorithm is holding our content back. It's the fact that we're not making the content for the algorithm to post. So let's be real about that. Let's address that. We need to show up and show out. And I'm calling you out, just like I'm calling myself out. That whole call out is basically been my whole trigger this whole entire time. I've been triggered by how people operate. I have not been saying anything about it because I feel like it's not my business, or it's not polite, or it's not part of my moral compass, or, I need to have this certain image of how I show up, and I need to not be messy. I don't want to be messy. I don't want to talk about the things that I really care about because I don't want to appear messy. And I do like a little tea. I like a little mess. But if I feel like it's not going to help progress the collective, then I don't want any parts. I don't want to spend any time on it. But sometimes I do have to mention it, and I have to say it. I have to bring it up, because it's part of my journey. It's part of my truth. It's part of my essence. And another thing that I definitely want to bring up for all of those that follow me for femininity and y'all don't watch none of the other videos, not knowing that the other videos have a lot of gems that are applied to you, even if the topic is not about you and you can't relate, there's still something in there for you. This is for you. Okay. A lot of you want to tap into your femininity because you're trying to get over on something. You think you're trying to do it for your well-being. You think you're trying to do it so you can have a better choice in how you pick partners, but you're still going to pick shitty partners. I'm just going to be honest, because at the end of the day, you're not doing the healing. And when you don't do the healing, you don't shift energetically. And if you don't shift energetically, you're going to get the same energetic prospects that you've been getting this whole entire time. So no matter how intelligent you are, no matter how wise you are, no matter how emotionally understanding you are, and notice I said understanding and not intelligent, because at the end of the day, you understand a lot of emotional aspects, but you don't understand that you need to develop emotionally as well. And in developing emotionally as well, you need to understand that your partner is going to meet you exactly where you're at. Your partner is not going to meet you where you want them to be. Okay. And a lot of you don't have clear vision on who you are or who your partner is. So let's be honest about that. The next thing is the fact that everybody wants this fairy tale love is the reason why you're going to be held back. You're going to continue to be held back because at the end of the day, you think that partnership is something that it is not. I've said this in so many different videos, and I feel like it's going through one ear and out the other for a lot of different people, because once they're done watching the videos, they go out and do the same repetitive behavior that they've been doing and wondering why nothing has changed, nothing has shifted, nothing has worked, because you want this love affair. And you've already had plenty of them. Just compile them together and there's your love affair. Because the type of love that you're trying to access is a type of love that makes you dumb. Let's just be honest. And it doesn't matter how good your partner is, you're still going to show up in an energy that feels needy, because it is needy. When you were full, you don't give off the essence of feeling needy. The other thing that I can't understand, and I would love for you all to answer, is why in the world do you want to have a man, but you don't like men? You don't even like men. So why do you want one? Why are you trying to find that one guy that's not like the rest of the guys? They're guys. What in the world are you expecting? I don't understand. Help me understand. Comment down below. Let me know exactly what it is you think you're going to find. A unicorn? You think you're going to find a unicorn? No. If you have an issue with men as a whole, as a majority, you're going to have an issue in your relationship. And the same thing goes for men as well, but I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to you. Let's understand something. Men are men, and you don't understand men. And in order to understand men, you need to understand yourself. You need to understand how you show up. And then it will be easier to see them and understand them. Because a lot of times when men tell us what it is, we say they're gaslighting us. We say that they're gatekeeping on certain things. And we say that they're just trying to pander to women, or we're saying that they're making excuses. And really, they're telling us the truth. A lot of things that I hear, I'm like, yep, that's true. And I know it's true because I used to be friends with men. I did the quotations because at the end of the day, they were my friend. I'm not sure if I was their friend, and I really don't care. But I know that I've had friendships with men where they would let me in on information that you all wouldn't believe. A lot of the information that people are spilling on the internet, I knew that when I was in high school. It's not new information to me. My dad put me up on game about men a long time ago. He told me things that I was like, oh, okay. I remember he used to say, when men see you, all they want to do is adult intimate relationships with you. And I was like, yeah, I know that. My mom told me that a long time ago. I believed her when she said it the first time when I was like 10, because I knew that. And he saw that I was still interested in boys. He thought I wasn't getting the message. I got the message. The message is they only want this from me. And that's all I want from them too. Duh. But can I say that to my dad? No, I couldn't say that. It wasn't new. It was just the way he was saying it, the way it was coming from a man. It gave me more insight of how men think and how they operate. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I just used it to have more game, to be honest. I used it to have more game. Now I use the knowledge that I have about men and the information that I've collected about more men. Now that I've collected information about the divine and spirituality and myself, now I'm able to see it in a certain type of way. And I'm like, oh, okay, I understand now. The good man that you're chasing is running away from you. The woman that you think you need to be for that man, he ain't gonna be that for you. And a lot of men are chameleons. They morph into what the woman that they're with needs. But you have to show up as that woman first. You don't grow into that woman and all of a sudden he's like, oh, she's the woman I've been looking. No, there's too much going on because you don't understand how men think. That's why you don't give men chances. The last time somebody asked me to give them a chance, I wish I had this line for them, because when I thought about it later, nobody ever asked me to give them a chance. If anybody were ever to ask me, just give me a chance to do what? Play around in my kitty and give me a disease? A chance to what? Emotionally distress me and wreck me? A chance to what? They're just lining up for their chance to poke. Let's be honest, because that's the energy that you're in. And you don't have to be a thought. You don't have to be a hoe. You don't have to be a pick-misha. You are just in a certain energy where they know that they have the chance. And maybe that particular man doesn't have the chance, but the man in that energy does, because you're not changing yours. When you think about all of that and you're honest with yourself about whether you even like them or not, if you don't like them, if you're scared of them, you're going to attract a certain type of version of them. That's what I want to say. When you're in a certain version of yourself, you attract a certain version of men. The thing that women don't understand is when you're in a certain version of self around women, women understand women. So we know where to give grace. We know where to give compassion. We know where to give nurture. Men are not like us. So they don't communicate the way we do. They don't pick up things the way we do. They just know their experience with women, so they treat you as such. When you operate a certain type of way, you're not changing their mind. All these movements of, oh, we got to make men do this and we're going to do this and that so that men can respect us and get desensitized to being sexually attracted to us. No, you need to learn how to make a man respect you. Okay? The respect is what you want, but you want him to tickle your monkey too. So you're willing to slack on the respect that you know that you should be holding. You should be holding a certain line so that you can collect your respect. You want more options, so you let that line fall. Are we getting a little bit too real now? Good, we're gonna keep going. Those are the truth that you gotta tell yourself, because that is the truth. That's why you are where you are. I make these videos so that we can show up in a world where we're happy to wake up every single day. And the only way to show up in that world is to heal. I'm going to give you free game, things that I've already put in my ebooks, but I'm going to give you free game on exactly how men are. Here we go. Wait a minute. My incense went out, so we're about to light some more incense, and then we're going to get into the conversation. The only way you're supposed to really truly use men is to gauge where you are. How men respond to you is going to show you how you are energetically carrying yourself. It does not matter how you do your hair. It doesn't matter how you do your nails. It doesn't matter if you have a clean girl aesthetic. It doesn't matter what clothes you wear. It doesn't matter whether you don't twerk in public. It does not matter. Men are not dumb, guys. They pick up on energy as well. They're just learning what the energy is, just like we are. And some of them put the wrong category or the wrong names on this energy, but they still feel it irregardless. What you need to understand is you're either in the category of being respected or you're in the category of not. And some men don't even have those different categories because maybe their moms were hoes and they just don't like women because they're embarrassed by the one that raised them. And that's not a shot. I'm just being real. All right. They don't even have a bucket of respectability and non-respectability because the only thing that they respect are men. Even if their father wasn't around, that's the only hope that they feel like they have. So you need to be able to see which one even has that. And it's not in whether he's a thug or he's not a thug or he's educated or not educated. Trust me, you have to start tapping into your intuition. You have to become more wise. Trial and error. Life is your best teacher. Start paying attention. And when you pay attention to the different men that you use to date, you also have to put into the data that you showed up a certain type of way. So you have no idea how that man would have behaved had you not been the woman that you were in that moment. Now that we have those two categories in order, you need to understand that most men don't fake it. It doesn't matter what comes out of their mouth, their body language typically tells you all you need to know. This is where wisdom comes in because some people are undiagnosed of a whole bunch of different neurodivergent categories. Okay, so you also probably need to be a whiz on people as well. You got to be a psychologist. I'm playing. You don't have to do all of that, but you do have to have some sort of knowledge and understanding that whatever lay of the land you create, all the land is not going to be leveled the same. So some people are fidgety and they're fidgety because they got other stuff going on that you may not know about, or that's how they show nervousness. Everybody does not show nervousness the same way, but people are definitely responding to you. So most men are not fake unless they're trying to tell you something to get where they want to get to in the sweet spot. They're going to tell you whatever they need to tell you, whatever you want to hear for you to loosen up a little bit. And let's face it, that works on a lot of women, and that's the problem. That's why they continue to do it. Let me ask you a question. When you are in a man's presence, how does he react? Is he trying to holler? Does he completely ignore you? Does he have motivation all of a sudden, like opening the door for you? Does he offer you help to make sure that you're all right and then leaves you alone? Does he help and then expect some sort of contact information later? How do you feel when you first see these men approach you? Are you anxious? Are you avoidant? Do you not notice they're there until they're right in your presence? Do you get upset that they don't notice you? Do you ever want to be noticed? Do you care if you're noticed? Those are just a few questions that you need to ask yourself, but not just for the men that you're interested in or that you pay attention to all men. How do all men respond to you? Everywhere, grocery store, gas station, parking lot, it doesn't matter. How are they acting when it comes to you? Once you have all of that reflection down, when you go out, start paying attention. And on the other side of this paper, if you want to write all this down, you're going to write what's really happening. Because when you reflect, you're reflecting on what you think is happening. When you are starting to pay attention and you're aware, you're going to write down what's really going on. Now compare if what you reflected on matches your discovery. Then compare what you truly want when it comes to partnership with men. Do all of those things align? So if you reflect and say, most men are helpful, I don't feel burdened by them, no matter how they look. But then you notice in your research, once you're aware, that men don't approach you at all. They don't notice you at all. And if you really get truthful about who you are and how you feel about men, you might feel like you desire a man. You wish that they paid attention to you. And whether this is rooted in mommy or daddy issues, this is not the time to go down that road. You can jot that down and make sure that you go through some healing practices for that later. Right now, you just have to see, how does everything align? You don't see men in a certain type of light that other women may be seeing men in, but you also notice that men don't pay you any mind, but you want the energy and the attention of a man. Now we got to start understanding why those things don't align with each other. If you're like most women that want to view men as monsters, I think you have to get very in tune with what type of monsters men actually are, if that's how you want to see them. And the monsters that I think most closely reflect men are the ones in After Earth. They're called Ursa, which ironically means bear in Latin. Those monsters hunted by fear. If you haven't seen it at all, you should watch it. If you watch how Jaden Smith's character, Katai, overcame the monsters, you'll have the realization on how to deal with men because they sense your energy. I notice that women try to cover up instead of address the things that they need to address to get right, for real. They cover up that they have fear of men. They cover up that they want to be chosen by men. They cover up that they're not bitter or angry when it comes to men. And when you try to cover all of these things up and present yourself a certain type of way, you're sending a lot of mixed messages. But to men, when they receive the message, it's almost like you're putting yourself in a certain category. So even though to us, we might be able to see that our best friend is sending mixed signals, to the man, it's not a mixed signal. It's you're in this category. Right now, off the top of my head, I can't think about the categories for men. I will have to get a man and sit him down and ask him how he would categorize things. And we don't typically like how they categorize things. So even to get their voice input on it, a lot of women won't even take it. But just to say, like, you might show up as whatever men call whatever they think of Megan Thee Stallion, or whatever they may think of Black China, or Hillary Clinton, or Monica Lewinsky, or Michelle Obama, or Jennifer Lopez. You know what I mean? Like, there may be classifications for different women that operate a certain type of way, but these women all are showing mixed signals to men, but they don't see it as mixed signals. They just put you in a category. Now, if you were in After Earth, you would get ate up. Because no matter how you like to twist it or turn it, at the end of the day, however you feel about men is rooted in some sort of fear. And the only way that you can walk past them and not have them react like a monster or a predator, you will have to handle the things that you got going on within yourself. Because a lot of us don't realize this. A lot of us look at the end result of something and we say, oh, I can just take this lighter and be the lighter. Everybody is going to know that I'm going to spark a flame. But if you don't have the proper fluid inside here, if you don't have the proper gears inside here, if you are just a mold of this lighter, you don't have the functionality of the lighter. And everyone can see that. But you're the only one that's thinking you're fooling someone. And the only people that you're fooling are the people that are never going to be able to get with a real lighter. Is that analogy working? Imagine being around someone that's never met you before. And when you're around them, you feel the air of disgust. They feel disgusted or repulsed by you. How is that going to make you feel? They don't even know you. You don't know them for them to be behaving that way, but they let off that air that they're just disgusted by you. The emotions that you would feel in that instant, it wouldn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. We would both feel similar ways about it. And it wouldn't be a good feeling. And unfortunately, that is the energy that a lot of women give men. They feel disgusted, or they feel like they want to use them, or they feel like they're scared of them, or whatever. That would piss me off. Honestly, as a Black woman, when I am being profiled, that does piss me off. So just think about how we also start things without realizing that we are starting it. We don't even realize or see it because most of the time we have our head so far up our ass that we can't see shit. You aren't aware to the point that you're realizing how you are behaving. You don't know how your face looks. You don't know how your body language is, and you cannot control those things. You have to get down to the root of why you are behaving like that in order to fix those things. Being hyper aware of trying to control how your body moves and how your voice sounds, and that is exhausting. It's so much easier to go through the healing process in order to clear those things for yourself. And honestly, your fear for them is the very reason why you behave the way you do. Whether you fear that they think you look ugly, whether you fear that they're viewing you as a victim, it doesn't matter, but it's all rooted in fear some way, somehow. And you have to get rid of that fear in order to know how to deal with them. Now, with me, you guys already know, I am very much in my feminine. I'm very much in my masculine. I don't remove my fear and leave myself defenseless. And I feel like that is what the full femininity journey is doing to a lot of women. You leave yourself open in an area where if there's a situation with just you and a man, and it is a situation where it feels like it's going to get bad, you don't have that fire that burns to be able to protect yourself and let somebody know, like, oh no, you got the right one today. And because I have that warrior spirit, because I know how to tap into my masculine, even in situations where it's dangerous, that is where some of my power lies. That's not where all my power lies. I had to learn how to balance myself out so that I won't have to rely on that all the time and get into my feminine. Because every situation is not a dangerous one. But when you always think that it is, and you always feel like you're uncomfortable or you're not safe, you will manifest more opportunities of that happening in your life, whether you know it or not, whether you think you can control it or not. So even if you're sitting there and you're like, no, I don't fear men, I hate men. Hate boiled down is just another form of fear. The more honest you are with yourself, the better off you'll be. Even if you don't want to be in relationship with men or you don't want to deal with men, whatever, you still want to be able to feel free enough to be yourself, unapologetic, energetically. I feel like a lot of us use materialism, we use monetary means, we use status to make ourselves feel valued and worthy in this world. But you getting in tune with your energy and who you are internally is what is going to prevent you from feeling that midlife crisis feeling that a lot of people feel. A lot of people will feel midlife crisis when they feel like they haven't achieved something in life. But once you do achieve those things, you'll feel another crisis. And the crisis is the fact that you never went within to figure out what you got going on. Organize yourself, dismantle things that you no longer need, different belief systems, trauma, abuse. You're so old that now at this point, it's like, man, it's going to take a lot of time for me to unlearn all of the things that have made me comfortable up until this point. Although there are things that annoy me about the men that I do know, for the majority, for the most part, I feel great around men, just like I do around women. It's up until somebody shows me something that I dislike is when I start to dislike them. But just blanket statement, when I go out into the world, I don't feel like I dislike anybody. I want to have a joyous day. I want to have a joyous life. And imagine if I'm having a great day and then all of a sudden there's a man, all of a sudden that just ruined my whole entire day. I'm not going to give anybody that much power, especially if they didn't do anything. They're just existing and I'm upset, I'm disgusted, or my whole energy has to shift because they're there. No, this is what I mean when I say make yourself the center of your universe. Because when you're your center, you're not worried about what they're doing. And when you handle all of the gunk within you, all of the energy that's just rooted in these horrible beliefs about people that you haven't even met before, when you get rid of all of that, you start to shine brighter. When you learn how to have boundaries, and a lot of people think the boundary is supposed to be you create the boundaries and you force people to follow your boundaries. That's not true. You have boundaries for yourself. You know when to walk away, you know when to talk, you know when not to. So when you operate in that manner, you're in a space where you have control of self. When you show up in a certain energy and a certain light and you're happy and you're not a people pleaser and you know how to honor self, that's when you get the most respect. Make sure you all keep that in mind. But that's my time. So I'll see you later. Peace, love, and a little bit of spice.